All right, let's go ahead and add some state to our component. And what state is it's a lot like props. Props is a value that you're passing in to your component. So it's a property. It's a custom property you're passing into your component. State is like a variable that's being internally tracked inside of your component. So every time you create a new item, it gets a new state. And this is kind of tricky to explain. And for me, at least when I was learning this a long time ago, the best way to learn this was to simply do it. So let's go ahead and create some state. For this, we're going to need to use a magic method called constructor. And I need to be able to spell that right, constructor. And this can take in props if we wanted to. And we could write super props. So we're just dealing with props there. If this were to extend from a different component, one that we wrote, this would make sure that all the other components from, let's say, not item, but maybe a list that we would write, would be available to us here. That's all that's saying. Then we can say this dot state is equal to, and this is an object. And let's count the number of clicks. So we can say clicks is going to be 0. That's the number of times that this was clicked. Now in our clickMe state, not our state, but our clickMe method, what we can say is every time this is clicked, this dot set state as a function takes an object and it basically matches this object here. So we're going to put the key of clicks and it's going to be this dot state dot clicks plus 1. Now that's cool and totally useless. It's not doing anything. At least we can't see that it's doing anything. So let's go ahead and make sure that when you click one of these, it actually does something. So in our H1, every time this is clicked, it's going to do something. So let's put the number of clicks below it. Let's write a new span in here. And this is just going to show the number of clicks. So we can say this dot state dot clicks is the number of clicks. And this is going to do 2 things, 3 things actually. So the first one here is we need to wrap all of this in some sort of HTML element. Let's go ahead and just move that up. And you notice that it was giving me a big problem there. It was giving me all those squiggly underlines. That's because the return statement is always expecting at least one element to be wrapped around all of your other code. So that's number 1. I save, I go here. Number 2 is, you can see it says 0 is the number of clicks, 0 is the number of clicks, 0 is the number of clicks. I wrote this in one spot, but because I have this component being used 3 times, it automatically updated in 3 different places. That's awesome. That means you have to do a lot less typing and your job gets a lot more easy, or gets easier. That was a funny way of saying that. Okay, so the third thing it's going to do is it's going to update the number of clicks. You can see that by default it says 0. If I click on Gully, every time I click this, I mean, I probably should have made this a button instead of an H1, but every time I click this, that number goes up. Same with Rhubarb, same with Caleb. And the really nice thing about this is that the number of clicks is local to this particular component. The number of clicks for Rhubarb is local to this component, and Gully is local to this component. What that means is this one is an item, this is a different item, and this is a different item. But we've written the logic just once, so we have constructor, state is equal to, an object with clicks is by default 0. Then when you click it, it updates the number of clicks by 1. And all that's going to do is update it for its one component. So when I click on Rhubarb, 3 turns into 4. 12 doesn't change, 4 doesn't change, only 3 does. And only this component is being updated. That is the power behind state. Now, the syntax for this is a little bit weird and it looks a little magical, but we can basically say when you have a constructor, this dot state is equal to, and I don't know why that moved, but this dot state is equal to an object, key, value. We can have numerous values in here too. We can say total remaining is equal to 100, and if we wanted to update total remaining, we would just add a comma in here and say the total remaining, we're going to update this all at once, remaining, make sure that's spelled the same, yep, is equal to this dot state dot total remaining minus 1. And not a semicolon because this is an object, not a regular line of JavaScript. And then we could say in here, the total remaining is going to be this dot state dot total remaining. And remember, we use that syntax, that curly brace syntax. That's how it knows that this is going to be JavaScript and not just HTML. So now every time I click this, this is going to go down. You can see that it's going down from 90 down to 80. Same with this one, same with this one, and the numbers are going up. So now we have two different states working at the same time for each particular item or each component. Now, what I would like you to do for your task is I want you to, first of all, add some state. You need to write your constructor method. It doesn't hurt to pass in props and super your props in there. Create your state in your constructor. Then in your click function from the last lesson, I want you to write this.setState. It takes an object which looks basically identical to this object and just change that value. You could change it to a name, you could change it to number of clicks, you could change it to anything you like. Last but not least, you need to be able to actually put that state in your document object model, in your HTML. And so all we do there is we say curly brace, this.state.property name from our object, that is, and then closing curly brace. Normal HTML, more JavaScript. That's all we have to do. Go ahead, try that out, and when you are ready, let's head on over to the next lesson.